I'm Rebecca George, and you are listening to the Caretakers Journey podcast.
I cannot believe I'm saying this, but welcome to the first episode of Season 2. I'm your host, Carole Leathem, and today I thought it would only be fitting to invite my friend, who is also my very first guest, back to celebrate and talk about this past year of the Caretakers Journey podcast. My friend, Rebecca George, is the founder of Radical Radiance, a podcast community where listeners are equipped to blend what they love with the Jesus who makes them shine. She is an author, a podcaster, a speaker, a coach. Her greatest joy, and I have experienced this personally because she has coached me and mentored me this last year as well, is in discipling and helping others pursue their passions in a way that builds the kingdom. Now, in her free time, and I know so much about this because I have been on some of these adventures with her, you can find her hiking in the Smoky Mountains, riding roller coasters. Now, I don't do that, but I hold her stuff while she rides the roller coasters and listening to music at Dollywood. She can be found also writing her new book, which is coming out soon, at our favorite Vienna coffee house in Maryville, Tennessee, or trying a new recipe with Dolly Parton's music playing in the background. Rebecca, I am so excited that you're here with me today to celebrate 1 year, one season of the show.
Carole, I'm so honored that you asked me back. This is so fun. You nailed my bio. You said you edited it, and you just totally, you nailed it. All my favorite things, especially when I get to do them with you. So this is so fun.
Yes, I can't wait. We're waiting for Dollywood annual pass holder day to be
Yes.
announced.
I can't wait.
So I can make my next trip to Tennessee. I was telling my husband that last night, waiting for the date to come. He was like, "You going back to Tennessee anytime soon?" I said, "Yeah, just waiting
I bet
for
we know somebody that knows the annual pass.
Yeah,
holder
I
day.
think we do. Yeah, we need to get that settled. Well, what a year it has been. You know, in our very first episode, we kind of turned the tables because I didn't know what I was doing and we needed people to get to know me and what my heart was for this ministry. So we kind of turned the tables and you became the host.
I love that.
I know, and it was fun. So here we are kind of again, and I think you should do it again.
I think we should do it again.
Okay, well, let's do it. So as a seasoned podcaster, I just think that you should just start off season 2 by starting to put me on the hot seat here.
I love putting you in the hot seat, and this is so fun to get to reflect on a full year. It's hard for me to believe that it's been that long since you launched the show, and it has just been so sweet to see how God has really moved and really gotten all of these conversations, these meaningful conversations into the lives of people that you are doing all of this for. You got an email just yesterday that you were sharing with me before we hit record of a woman who's been caretaking for over a decade.
Yeah.
And it's just so cool to see God meeting the need that we knew was there, right?
Yeah.
There are how many caretakers in the US alone?
55 million.
That is such a crazy stat. So I just feel honored to get to walk alongside you in this journey, and it's so fun to celebrate that. And so first question, it's been a year. So as you reflect on everything you have learned personally, like this has been such an amazing outlet for you in the midst of your own caretaking journey. What have you learned, and what of that would you want to share with everybody listening today?
Well, when in our very first episode, we talked about how this whole idea was born at the Camp Creative on the deck of that cabin. And looking back on the year of just recording and doing all of the interviews, there was such a learning curve for me. I've always been a techie girl, so it wasn't really the technology that I was afraid of, but it was, how am I going to find the guests and what is that going to look like? And they just started coming out of the woodwork. It was like,
Truly.
I was truly shocked. I mean, even getting on a plane and sitting down next to Kathy Lee Gifford, who is probably my most famous, will probably always be my most famous guest. Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
But let's
not put limits like that on God.
That's right. But just sitting down next to her and then having her come on the podcast and just that just blew up the YouTube channel. Because I posted that on the YouTube channel. So just watching the connections that have happened and the people who have reached out. I have had some of the most beautiful text messages. I never realized that I would touch the lives of people I didn't know in such a deep
Mm,
way.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
when I got a text message with a photo from a young girl and her mom, and she's the caretaker for her mom, I don't know them. She Googled caretaking and my podcast came up and she
Wow.
started listening and then she started finding my contact information on the website and she sent me a text message and to just hear story after story of how God has just used the people who have come on the show and the things that I have shared to touch
Yeah.
their lives. And I think for me, the thing that surprises me is as soon as I started this, my caretaking went on steroids because I picked
Mm,
up the care of my mom. I picked up the care of somebody else in my family as well as my husband who developed health issues along the way. And I think God just knew that
yeah.
I was going to be able to encourage not just those who struggle with mental health, but those who struggle with health issues or caring for
Mm,
somebody who struggles. So just
yeah.
seeing the wide range. I didn't try to put myself in a box, and God just said, there is no box.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that so much. And as I think about all the conversations you've had, this is putting you on the spot, but I wonder if there's something that kind of sticks out as you just kind of step back and think about the whole year. Is there maybe a conversation or a nugget of wisdom or something that somebody said over the course of this year that you think back and you go, "Oh yeah, that really stuck with me," or I even took that and implemented it or did that in my own life. Is there something like that that sticks out?
There has been many times that I've been interviewing somebody or I've read their book or I've been preparing
Yeah.
for an interview that I have said, "Ooh, I need this." And then I write it down and in my journal and it's something I go back to. But there is one. There's one that was literally life-changing for me and I don't even know that I've ever gone back to them and said it was a husband and a wife a few months ago, Dale and Lori Wood,
Mm,
and I was interviewing her, and she is the one who is being cared for. Her husband is the caretaker, and he is the only male caretaker that I've interviewed this year. And
wow.
he was very shy and was very sort of just very gracious in our interview.
Mm,
And yet, there were so many things that came out of his mouth that were helpful to me. And
mm,
he said, just very quietly, the most profound statement to me that I have come back to because it helps me. Because I tend to be a pit bull. I tend to be someone who wants to like fix it, run in, fix it, take
yeah.
care of the whole thing. And he made a comment. We were just talking, and I don't even remember the question I asked him. But all of a sudden, he said, well, here's the deal. You can't care more than the person you're caring for.
Mm,
And it hit me like a ton of bricks when he said it, but I kind of passed over and covered it up. But when I went
yeah.
back and listened to the episode later and it came up again, I just I sat there for a little while and cried because
Yeah.
I think for me it was freeing to
Mhm.
realize not that I can't care, but I can't care more than the person that I'm caring for. And I was in
Yeah.
a really difficult situation at that point, caring for 3 people who were in life-threatening situations
Yeah.
and feeling the weight of, "What do I do? How do I do this?" And I
Mhm.
can't be in 3 places at once. And all of a sudden, at first, it sounded like, "Oh, well, you shouldn't care more than they do." But then when I really started picking it apart and realizing what he meant, I went,
Yeah.
"Okay, okay, at some point, I can only do so much." So
Mm.
for me as a
Yeah.
caregiver, that just changed. It
Yeah.
changed the way I looked at it. It changed the way I dealt with all the people I'm caring for in my life.
That's so good. I love
Yeah.
that so much. I wonder, as you think about that, I think that speaks to so many challenges that caretakers have.
Mhm.
And I know you could speak to this certainly on a personal level, caring for those in your life that you are caring for. But
Mhm.
as you have had conversations this year, as you've recorded episodes of this podcast, heard feedback, for people who might be newer to the show, but they're tuning in to this first episode of season 2, what are you seeing as some of the greatest challenges of caretakers right now?
Oh, that's yeah. the feeling of aloneness
Yeah.
because you tend to be isolated. I was talking with someone yesterday at church whose husband is not doing well, and he's got to have a pretty serious surgery, and she's a very social person, and for the
Mm.
next 3 weeks before the surgery they have to quarantine
Oh,
because of
wow.
the seriousness of his surgery. He cannot be out in public, she cannot be out in public, so they have to quarantine for 3 weeks. Then they have to go through the surgery, which is going to be pretty risky and scary. And then
Yeah.
they have to go back. And afterwards, they have to quarantine. And she was
Wow.
talking about how hard it's going to be for her to be isolated for
Yeah.
6 weeks or 8 weeks. And that's just that's one of those one certain situations. So many
Yeah.
times the isolation happens because at the holiday, we've just gone through the holiday times.
Mhm.
And sometimes the holidays don't look the same when you're doing caretaking. And we tend to isolate. And I've
Yeah.
found that isolation is a problem because when people start to get overwhelmed, they tend to pull away. They tend to
Mm.
try to find some peace. And what they're doing is they're actually separating themselves from the people that can help them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that isolation is a huge one. The feeling of being alone, caretakers burn out. I will
Mm.
tell you that I'm coming out of probably a month and a half of just recovering from burnout.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I didn't even know. I mean, here I am. I know all the signs, I know everything about it. And then I wake
Yeah.
up one morning and there I am in the middle of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, yes, this is what it feels
Yeah.
like. So,
Yeah.
just the burnout feeling.
I think that's so important though, because, and I write about this a little bit in my next book, but sometimes when we are longing for something or we're walking through maybe something like a difficult caretaking situation, sometimes what accompanies the loneliness is kind of our choice to
Mm,
not share or pursue community,
mhm,
sometimes for the reason of, and the sentiment, the way I would describe it is kind of this, well, they just don't get it.
mhm,
They're not in my life, so they don't get it. And so I I see that in myself
mhm.
in different, which we have, you know, just a few minutes here today, so we don't have time to get into all of this, but there are areas of my life where it would be easy for me to say that or act that way or not receive
Mhm.
community. But what I preach back to myself that I would encourage listeners with today is, like, since when did we have to be gotten
Oh,
to live in
s
community?
so good.
Right? And what do
Mhm.
we miss out on because of our unwillingness to maybe share or be open or receive help or ask for it or whatever, like, whatever the challenge is,
Oh,
it
yeah.
just might be because you think you have to be gotten.
Oh,
And
totally.
and
Oh,
so,
completely.
I don't know, while we're on that topic, that's something that I have been challenging myself with. So I think that's so good. That is certainly, I think, probably one of the greatest challenges of your people, and I love how you are meeting that need in such practical ways, not only through the podcast, but other things that you're doing. And so tell people, what can they look forward to this year and in season 2, all of the things.
Well, I'm gonna do something different with this episode, and so this episode is actually gonna drop on January 1st,
I love it.
instead of
Happy
waiting
New Year,
till Friday.
everybody.
Yeah, yeah. So New Year's Day, I'm gonna drop this episode, and I'm actually dropping 2 episodes on January 1st because I'm starting a 31-day, what I'm calling it, the 31-day Caretakers Resolve. I don't like the word New Year's resolutions. But when I researched the idea of what is a New Year's resolution, it started like 4,000 years ago with the Babylonians, and I resolved to do something better in the year to come. And so I started thinking about I just started making a list, and I immediately came up with like 31 things that we could resolve to do better as
Mm,
caregivers. So
yeah,
I'm creating 31 short shorter versions of the show during the month of January, as well as our weekly normal event or
yeah,
episode. So everything will drop on January 1st, and we're going to start January off with 31 days of resolves, things that we're going to try to do better to just take care of ourselves.
yeah,
31 things. So that's one thing we can look forward to. And then for the rest of the month of January, I'm really going to focus on just helping restore joy to
Mm,
the caregivers. I am hearing from so many of my caregivers that the holidays were hard for them.
yeah.
And and so I have some surprises that I'm going to do over the next 4 weeks after our episode airs on January 1st. And the next 4 weeks after that, I have 4 solo episodes that I'll be putting out
I
that will
love
just
that.
talk about some coping techniques that we can do
Yeah.
to help
Yeah.
restore joy, because I think that's one of the things that is so important. We lose our joy, and joy is a choice. And
Mm,
so just kind of
yeah.
unpacking that. I'm also unveiling the middle of January. I know. I can't believe I'm saying this. A membership group.
I
And
love it.
it's going to be a community where caregivers can come and find encouragement, inspiration, support. Um, a lot of, I'm working with a lot of the authors that I've interviewed, some that I have
Yeah.
coming up. We're going to put out some downloadable material. And for those who join the community, it will be a paid community. Um, for those who join, all of the information will be available for free. And then there'll be
Love
some
it.
deeper interviews with from the podcast that will only be for that group.
Mm,
And so if you are interested in that, I'll put the email in the show notes. Go and either email me, or there's a place where you can go and sign up for a newsletter that'll start going out to promote that. So
I love
I'm
it.
I'm excited. I'm a
Yeah.
little bit nervous, but the growth from this year has told me that there's more that I have time and that I can do, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we're gonna do it.
I love it. I'm so excited for you and proud of you, and there is such a need here as we talked at the very beginning. There are millions of people out there, and
Yeah.
I know, you and I have both looked. There's not a lot out there that will
Mm-mm.
really serve and walk alongside and
Right.
encourage caretakers, and so thank you for how you're meeting
Mm.
such a great need, and I just feel so excited to only be a year into seeing what God is doing here, and, um, I think, as we talked about the aloneness, the isolation being such
Mhm.
a challenge for caretakers, this is such a practical way to meet that need and to walk in community with other people who are facing similar battles as
Yeah.
you. Back to, like, we wanna be understood and we wanna be known,
Mhm.
and sometimes what is most helpful is to get around people who are fighting
Yeah.
similar battles as you,
Yeah.
and so I think that's part of what you're providing here, which is so
Oh,
cool.
absolutely. And so many times people just don't understand if you're not in the middle of it. And here's the interesting thing. The people who are not caregiving, the statistics show that they should be prepared because they're probably
Yeah,
going to be caregivers in the future.
yeah,
And so the fear is, especially when you're dealing with the mental health component, there's a
mhm,
fear there because we don't understand it. And so part of what I also am really wanting to challenge people to do is to understand what that looks like from a perspective of someone who's caring, because I find even friends, even people I've known for a long time just still don't get it. They
yeah,
just think 10 years, why are you still dealing with this? Can't you get a counselor? Can't you figure this out? I'm like,
yeah,
oh my
yeah.
gosh, well,
If
I've
only it
tried
were that
so.
simple.
Yeah, isn't 10 years? Somebody actually said to me a few weeks ago, saw them at church and they're like, "You're still dealing with this?" And I'm like, yes." And they're like, "But it's been like 5 years." And I'm like,
Mm,
"Well, it's been 10." And they're
yeah,
like, "Well, shouldn't it be over?"
yeah,
That's what they said. Shouldn't it be over? And I think sometimes there's just not there's a misunderstanding. And so
yeah,
my goal is to bring not only encouragement and support to those of us who are in the trenches doing the caring,
yeah,
but to also educate
yeah,
and have those hard conversations about what caregiving actually is.
yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, so
I love it. I'm so proud of you. I'm so
oh, thank
excited for
you.
this next year, and I can't wait for this time next year for us to reflect on whether it's on the podcast or just sitting across my couch with a cup of coffee to just reflect on all God has done at that
Oh.
point, and so I
Well,
can't wait.
and thank you. You've been a huge part of this journey for me as well. And so let's talk just for a second. as we close out about this new book coming out because I know
Okay.
I know, yeah, I know. I wanna talk about it because, um, I'm excited about it,
Yeah.
and, I don't know exactly what you can tell us because the big reveal is coming this week, so you're gonna wanna
Yeah.
go follow Rebecca George, on her social media, and I'll put all of her, I'll put her Instagram and her website in the show notes so that you can go
Mm,
follow her because it's going to be good. So tell us what you
yeah.
can tell us. You shared a little bit about it, but tell us
Yeah.
what you can tell us about the book.
Yeah. I mean, the worst thing is I could tell the Caretaker Journey people more than I have said otherwise, and you guys go pre-order the book. That's the worst thing that could happen. So I'll talk all about it. So, and it's actually 2 days from now that I'll kind of unveil what I'll share in a moment. So the title of the book is You're Not Too Late: Trusting God's Timing
Oh,
in a Hurry Up World, which,
I love it.
man, anytime I say that title out loud to myself or to someone in my life, there's just this kind of big exhale that
Yeah.
happens. Like, man, I need that message, and that speaks to my heart. And so we all experience longing and seasons of
Hmm.
waiting, and it's difficult to know what to do with those longings. I always say longing is no respecter of persons, and we all could probably think back or look at our season of life now and think about something that we're waiting on.
Hmm.
And so this book is all about how do we go from despair to joy? How do we
Mm.
turn from doubt to biblical hope? And what does hope even mean? And what does it look like to
Hmm.
hope in Christ? So I'm super excited about it and can't wait to see what and how God intends to use it. But you actually got to be a part of a really special project that I can't wait for your people to get in on. And so I wanted to somehow partner with some of the amazing women that I get to walk alongside in the work that we do in writing and podcasting to put together something that would encourage everybody as kind of a big thank you for pre-ordering the book. And so I've put together this was I remember the look on your face when I told you my idea. You were like, "Rebecca, are you sure?" We put together a 50-day
Hmm.
free digital devotional. It's called God's Timing in Your Story,
So
and
good.
5 women per chapter. There's 10 chapters in the book, but we have 5 devotionals per topic in the book. So for 50 days, you can be encouraged by all of these amazing women. There are some just awesome women that were a part of this project. And so basically, all you have to do is pre order one copy of the book, which you can do now. It's live on Amazon, and then go to nottoolatebook.live, not
Hmm.
TOO, latebook.live. And there's a form there that you can fill out, and I'll send it directly to your email, and you can enjoy it. And Carol wrote the very first day.
I know.
So there you go.
I wasn't when you asked me to do it, I was like,
You
yeah,
went on the
sure.
sign up sheet and you were like, I'm going to sign up for the very first day. I
That's
remember us
right.
talking
I'm
about it.
like, yeah, so I will put all of that information in the show notes, and I have already pre-ordered the book. I think I pre-ordered it the
I
first
think you were
day
the
it went.
very first one.
But I am so excited about this message because, for someone who is in a caretaking situation, sometimes it feels like we are stuck in the
Yeah.
waiting. And sometimes it's hard, even for me to I've just announced all of this stuff that I'm going to do, but my life is still in chaos, and
Yeah.
I'm still dealing with the care of my mom and this other family member and my husband and all of this, and my husband's having surgery in 2 weeks, and he may have to have another one, and so it feels like, "Okay, should I not?" And then from some of the interactions that I've had with you and talking about the topics and the subject in this book, I realize why not now? Because
Yeah.
I'm in the thick of it, like so many of my listeners are. And
Yeah.
sometimes we just need to, if you can, and I can, step
Mhm.
away from that part of our life and then share what we're learning
Yeah.
with the other people who
Yeah.
maybe don't have that freedom. So I'm so excited. So thank you so much, Rebecca, for just coming on and helping me open up season 2. I still can't even believe that, I've
Me
had
too.
45 episodes in season 1 and so much fun,
Mm.
just getting to know all of these incredible people, and some of them have become friends, and I've stayed in touch.
Yeah.
That's the most beautiful part of it, is that I've read their books. I know their heart. I've interviewed them, and I've stayed in touch, and some of them are friends. And I just thank you so much, listeners, for this first fun season. I'm excited for 2025. And if you know a caretaker, share this podcast with them. Also, if you subscribe and follow the podcast wherever you listen, that's so helpful, because other people it helps other people find the podcast. And the YouTube channel has just absolutely blown up. And so I'm now posting all of the video and the audio versions of the podcast on the YouTube channel. And those are all in the show notes, so you can subscribe to that as well. And I appreciate all of you who listen around the world. I am overwhelmed with the fact that we are in 18 countries. Like, I just cannot even believe that there are people in Guam and Spain and Russia and just all of these different countries who are listening to the podcast. And I hope that you realize that you as a caretaker are not alone, that there are 55 million of us in the United States alone. There's 55 million. I think it's upwards of 80 million in the world.
Wow.
And growing. Every day it's growing. And there are certain countries where they predict, like the UK, they predict. There's a statistic that I saw the other day that predicts that the UK caregivers are going to explode in the next decade. And so, you're
Sounds
not
like we
alone.
need to go to Europe and host like a meetup or something.
I would love that.
Fun.
I have, the UK is one of my largest, besides the United States, one of my largest groups of listeners. So boy, I would love that. I would love nothing more than to sit down and have coffee with some of these caregivers who are listening. And they're, like I said, I'm gonna keep plugging along. This is Happy New Year. I hope 2025 is going to be a good year for you. And if there's something that I personally can do with the ministry, there's an email me. I love to get emails from the listeners. So email me, let me know if there's a topic you need us to cover, if there's something that you are feeling at the time. I wish I had time to sit down and have coffee with every caregiver that listens. But I will be back next week I'll be back tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow. I know, I have to say that. For the next 31 days, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode of our Caregivers Resolve. 31 days of Caregivers Resolve, and next week for another meaningful conversation. And I just cannot wait to see what 2025 has in store for us. And until then, it's all about him.